back to the Masters of Modern podcast. I am your host, Alex Kessler, here with my co-host, Ben the Boss Bateman.
Whoa, what's going on, guys? Wow.
This is we're an old-timey radio show now. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. We are celebrating. This is going to be probably the last episode of the year, because Christmas is this weekend and then New Year's is the following weekend. And so we figured we'll just kind of do a year in review, 2022. Go through each product release of the year. Give our thoughts on each of them, and then end with a little bit of Phyrexian speculation.
Alex had a called shot that he would like to flex on you guys.
Brag about some called shots. First off, I do want a big shout out to our patrons. Thank you so much for making this podcast happen. Thank you for making this year happen. If you are a patron, hopefully next month we'll be sending out everyone's quads of lightning bolts. Everyone that was a patron for the last 4 months, January, December, November, and October. If you're a patron, you'll get 4 lightning bolts from our sponsors at Alter Sleeves, and a big shout out as well to Alter Sleeve as a part of that deal. And then lastly, this is powered by tcgplayer.com. There's a link below. It's an affiliate link. They don't use a code. Use the link. When you click on the link, they'll remember we sent you, and it helps us exist. And you can find us on channelfireball.com if you want to watch this or listen to it on that platform if you're a Channel Fireball user. So big shout out to everyone. Now, year in review. This year started off.
You think? Wait. Oh, trivia. The trivia. We have weekly trivia here on the show, Alex.
All right. Do you have here? Trivia me up.
Do you? I had to come up with my trivia. Do you have trivia? Because I'm looking at my binder of old cards here to get some inspiration.
So there is a now discontinued Wizards of the Coast product, Signature Spellbook, and in the Signature Spellbook series, each one is a series of spells that are centered around a different planeswalker.
Yes.
There were 3 printed. There hasn't been one recently. Of those 3, each of them centered around a different founding member of the Gatewatch, except for one founding member. Which founding member of the Gatewatch did not receive a Signature Spellbook? The way that this contest works, everyone, is Ben's going to him and ha as I explain the rules. You are all going to hit that like and subscribe button after commenting below what your answer is. And if you get the right one, you have to hit like. If you got the wrong, if you don't know the answer, you have to hit subscribe. And if you already hit subscribe, you have to hit like. And if you already hit like, you had to hit subscribe. That's if you get it right, you don't have to do anything. All right, Mr. Ben.
Can I ask a context question to help clarify?
Yeah.
Do I get to know who the founding members of the Gatewatch are?
No, that's part of the question.
Stupid story, Gatewatch.
I do think that would give it away. I will tell you that there was one for each color, excluding one. There was 4 founding members. One color was excluded.
Wait, really? There was 4? Why couldn't you just be like the 5 planeswalkers from Lorwyn? That's so much easier for me to remember. All right. Let me think. I feel like
there's a reason for it. I can explain why.
Okay. I know that Jace got one because I have some of the cards. Mm-hmm. He for sure had a Signature Spellbook. I feel like the other founding members of is it Garrick? Johnny? No, Gideon maybe. One of the white planeswalkers. And then I think Liliana, did she work with them to do some stuff? Maybe I feel like that happened. Nissa, no, Garrick was for sure. I want to say it's Garrick, Jace, Gideon, and Liliana. I'm probably wrong. Garrick, those are the 4. Spencer.
That wasn't the question, so I'm not going to confirm.
I know. You shut it. And if you guys don't know this. All right, so those are the 4. I'm
I thought this question was a lot easier than it's ending up being. So,
you know me, I'm a dunce when it comes to certain things. I'm going to say, because I know Jace got one, I'm pretty sure there was a black one. I think Liliana got some sweet spells, and I think that Garrick never got one. I think that Gideon did for some reason. I'm going to say Green and Garrick.
Okay, so. The good news is that green is the color that didn't get a signature spellbook from the
Sick,
original
but it's
4 Gatewatch
Nissa,
members.
not Garrick. Is that the problem?
Not Garrick. So the original Jace got one.
Well, I answered the question correctly because by the way, I was not asked who was in the Gatewatch, just the color, which means I got it correct.
You did get green. You did get green.
Alex.
Chandra was the second one. So it was Jace then Chandra, which you missed entirely. You didn't get the color that wasn't included. Gideon is the third one. And it might be Gideon versus Chandra. I'm willing to say that might not be the right order. And then Nissa was the fourth founding member of the Gatewatch, and she did not get a signature spellbook. There was eventually a Commander Collection Green, which is the product that replaced the signature spellbook. That was just a cool green commander cards. And then there was a fifth Commander Collection Black that was just cool black commander cards. Liliana didn't join the Gatewatch until the following block. Shadows over Innistrad. She joined in Eldritch Moon.
So I actually did have a somewhat correct memory of Liliana being involved.
Liliana is in the Gatewatch, right? But so is a Johnny, and Garrick has actually never been in the Gatewatch. He has never been a Gatewatch member.
Okay. The Johnny thing was I thought I remember.
I believe at the time Garrick was a full villain actually, because Liliana cursed him. Remember, he was hunting people.
We're gonna go too deep, guys, on trivia tonight.
We're going back and forth.
Yeah, well, because I never get to ask Alex trivia questions.
Okay, all right.
I never get to, and
it's
so I
would embarrass you regularly, and you're jealous and or mad about that.
I mean, I don't feel that that's fair. All right. The original Savage Mill card was Glimpse the Unthinkable. It milled 10 cards for blue-black. That was like the OG card that had a high rate of return for 2. After Glimpse the Unthinkable, when it comes to just direct mill, I'm talking like 2 CMC X cards, like a certain number, not like a equal to some weird thing or how many things you flip or whatever, but just target player mills a certain number of cards. What was the highest number of cards printed on a mill card prior to breaking and entering the mill 8?
All right. So I'm gonna him and ha. I'm hemming and I'm hawing and I'm him hawing. 7.
Do you know what the card was?
Wanted a blue target player mills 7 cards.
I have a Chinese one here in this binder.
Sorcery. I don't know what the name is because I don't know. I was really afraid you're going to be the next one. Mills 7. What's the name of the card? And I was going to be wrecked, but you said the number, so I have saved myself.
You don't know the name of the card, though?
No, of course I don't. I don't know the name of any
You guys
card.
You guys have to like, comment.
I was chewing on ice. I was chewing on ice when you said Glimpse the Unthinkable, and I was terrified that you're going to ask me what is the 10 cards card called, and I wasn't going to remember Glimpse of the I was like Thought Scour. No, that's the cantrip.
I was hoping you wouldn't remember that tome. The card is called Mind Sculpt, and I was hoping you wouldn't remember that because there was other options. Tome Scour was 1 for 5. It was a core set common for a long time. They've printed a bunch, but Mind Sculpt was a sweet card there for a second. Anyway, guys, that was our trivia section of the show. As we said, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you didn't get it right. And if you don't already follow us on TikTok, go check it out. We have an awesome MMcast.
There's a Masters of Modern TikTok. It's not just us. It's them.
Renee, who you guys saw on here, it does a great job and helps us out with that. So we're going to do a year in review. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start beginning of the year, first product? What are you thinking? Actually, you know what? Before we get into the beat by beat, do you have a 2022 favorite Magic thing? Memory, set, experience, something that jumps out for you that was like the best Magic thing of the year?
The best, like any type of Magic thing? Yeah. This is a weird, I don't know if this counts. Getting brunch with Jim from the Spike Feeders, Olivia, Brian Kibler, and Logan, Seraph 6, and on everything within 12 hours of my son being born, within 14 hours of me previewing the card for New Capenna with me in cosplay for Xander, like that was a 24-hour period. And technically, I previewed that card 24 hours earlier than I was supposed to. I was supposed to preview it on Sunday, but I did it on Saturday morning, and my son was born that day. So I previewed. What card? It's like in this room somewhere. It's not even like an amazing card. I previewed Graveyard Shift as Xander.
Oh yeah.
The same day my son was born, and the same day I got brunch with Brian, Olivia, and Jim visited, and Logan was visiting the same weekend. So that's probably my favorite memory. So I cheated and went with my son was born.
That's a pretty good Magic memory. Ash's Magic. So
it was pretty magical.
Pretty solid. I think probably my favorite Magic memory from 2022 was the 2-week span of Magic 30 leading directly into Summit. And the reason, there's a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason for me was, number one, you're a dad and you run the company that I work for and you're very busy. I don't get to see you or hang out with you that much anymore socially. I do see you and talk to you a lot, but like the kind of hanging out that we used to do 5 years ago where we got to like play a lot of Magic, game nights and stuff. We'd like travel together a ton. I don't get to do that much. So like, that's really fun for me, but also it reawakened my love of paper Magic and just Magic in general. I've played so much more Magic in the last 6 weeks. It was like finally post COVID, it was like the thing. I needed it. Like I needed that thing that reminded me of how much I love playing and just love building and thinking about it and trying to solve the puzzle and collecting and sleeving cards. And there, Magic is this brilliant, beautiful thing that like, once you're in it, it really does feel like it is one of the most important things in your life. But when you kind of phase out of it, like it's happened to me a few times. It starts to feel not like a waste of time, but it just doesn't have the priority in your life that when you're in it, it feels like it's totally like an inescapably important thing. So many of the best things in my life have come from Magic. A lot of my best friends, people I know, it's like so many good experiences. And so Magic 30 through Summit was the big like explosion of, I want to do this again. I want to get excited about making content and think about it all the time and read about it and open packs and like build decks and own cards. Part of the reorganizing my collection was just because I just, I have tons of cards and it was just fun for me. It was fun to like look through stuff.
Sure.
So I think that's my answer. But anyway, if that's our top, let's start at the beginning of the year. What was the first set of
so before you get that, 2020 is an interesting year. 14% of all Magic cards, I believe, were printed this year. of new Magic cards, I believe were printed in 2022, which is an insane number. The multitude of products released this year. Now, it is by far the worst in the second half of the year, partially just due to the release schedule of New Capenna, not New Capenna, the release schedule of both Unfinity and the Warhammer decks being moved to this half of the year when they were supposed to be in April and over the summer. Definitely made the fall feel literally like we are in a constant, like we are not doing it. Please comment below if you really, really want this. But right now we have no plans on doing a Brothers War modern set review. It's the first set we haven't done a set review, first standard set we haven't done a set review since maybe this podcast has started.
Just because purely there's just so many cards, like
we're new Phyrexia preview. Like this episode is gonna have new Phyrexia previews are happening. We just haven't had time. And so that's a lot of product. At the same time, while they've also gone wide in a bunch of different product releases, they've also gone tall, right? Not only is it a bunch of different sets and supplemental products being released every year, you have per set now you have set booster, draft booster, jumpstart booster, and collector booster are the 4 types of boosters available with every single set. On top of that, you also have the commander decks that go along with that set. So there's 5 different product releases alongside each product set. Then you have secret layers on a monthly basis, both big seasonal ones plus monthly ones. And then on the off months from standard sets, you have at least one supplemental set a month.
It's a ridiculous amount of product.
Is
Ridiculous.
that too much?
You know, I've had this conversation now a bunch. We've had it on this show, and I've had it with a bunch of other people. There's a lot of like, you know, very pessimistic Magic fans who played a long time who have said a lot of negative things over the last little while. It's a contentious period of Magic. I think there's a lot of people who are talking about how the Magic 30 product is ruining Magic, about how there's too much product, about the way that product is released, about they can't keep up with it. And, you know, to some degree, like anything, Magic changes. If you were a guy like me who spent a lot of years focusing on 3 expansion set releases, one years ago, I'm talking before M10, like the first years of Magic, you get a core set and 3 sets. You could track every Magic card by name, like easily. You could know all of the cards. I wouldn't say it wasn't hard, but it was like a point of pride to know all the cards. And I did for a long, long time. Now it is almost impossible to do that. Like, it is nearly impossible to track it. You
Possible
can,
is a strong word, but it's very hard.
You can, but you have to be kind of obsessive.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, because like a lot of what happened with those old sets and the old release schedule was that you would play limited. So you would learn the commons through limited, you'd open packs, you'd get rares, the hot cards that were played in standard, you'd know about the really cool cards that would last beyond the set would become iconic. And then occasionally there would be some like dumb white pacifism effect that you like wouldn't remember the name of because like wasn't quite playable in limited or something. But like for the most part, you would get all aspects by doing that. If I don't buy the Warhammer 40k decks and people I know aren't playing with those cards, there's a lot of cards that were printed and made that I'll never see, talk about, or have any interaction with.
I mean, on that note, I think there's actually kind of a weird positive there where for a long time, I got to the point where like I knew every card. I no longer was surprised by old cards. I basically had played against most ones that relevant, and even the ones I haven't, we've done chaos drafts with. I've looked through the sets for like episodes of this, or were cool cards to sue, or just like, you know, look just like there have been airplane rides where I just looked through every card in Magic from Hong Kong, just to like because I didn't know what else to do, didn't know, and my like couldn't sleep. I was trying to fall asleep, and something that happened at Magic Summit and Magic 30 that was really cool is instead I was regularly surprised by new cards I'd never seen before. And it kind of felt like back in the day when you're like, oh, right, it's kind of fun to learn things in a game of Magic that you haven't seen before versus having just the eternal knowledge of everything. I think that's a growing pain. I think there's a subsection of Magic player that just like loved being big brained, of knowing every card ever printed, being able to name every limited like all-star from every draft format, that like they lost that. They no longer get that ability. But I don't think that ability is special. Like I guess is my hot take maybe is like, I don't think it's needed or even important to know every card in Magic. And if you want to do that, you can. Now it's a harder challenge, but you can still do that. But like, I think there is an inundation of product, and it is exhausting if you're trying to pay attention to all of it. I think a lot of it is segmented. Like I think one thing that's cool about Commander is you don't need to add a card to a deck ever again. This Commander deck right here, I never have to touch it again. I can just leave it as is, and it'll be a cool, fun Commander deck forever. Modern you do, but Modern still is only having 4 sets a year being released into it, right? If you're playing Standard or Modern, maybe 5, if a Modern Horizons-esque set comes out that year, there's 4 to 5 sets a year you have to pay attention to. That's one more set than there used to be, but not. It's really 4.5 because it's every other year a Modern Horizons set comes out.
I think that probably the answer to the question that you first asked, which is it too much? The short answer is yes. I don't think it's too much in the sense that it's ruining Magic. I don't think Magic is in a bad place. I think quite the contrary. I actually think, and I've been saying this to many people, I think Magic is one of the best places it's ever been. I think Magic is right now in a place where the dominant format is one that encourages a community building experience, which is like playing to the greatest strength that Magic offers. Something that no collectible card game, or especially, this is the most important thing, no digital client can compete with. That's the one difference Magic has from all the other competitors. To every single new digital TCG that wants to try to even get it, or even like a paper TCG, like Flesh and Blood, that is really well put together with good funding, and they've had a great response. They've got less than 2 years. You can't compete with 30 years of history, with paper history. You can't. It's impossible. You have people who right now, their kids are 25 and they've been playing Magic their whole life. Their kids played as kids and now their kids are having kids. Like, you've got multiple generations. And so much of what makes Magic special is expressing yourself with the cards that you like to play and the types of those cards that you want to put in your decks. So there's so many things that Magic has to offer that the other games can't compete with, that I really do think that the community aspect being the strongest format right now is actually, it makes, in my opinion, Magic the strongest place that it's ever been. Does that mean?
I agree.
Does that mean that where we are with set releases is perfect? The answer is no. I think that the standard set cycle is still really important. It's what creates limited. It's like a very, very cool thing. I have no problems with sets like Secret Lairs. I think those are great. I like cool premium versions of cards that already exist. It's one of my favorite things that exists right now. I think stuff like a 1,200 card Jumpstart set, or I think stuff like... I do think that there are product releases that don't feel necessary. Like, I can
tell you the two products that I would have deleted from this year, and you touched just on one of them, right? The first one is Jumpstart 2022.
Was the other one Remastered Dominaria?
No. I think it's fine. I think the other one is Unfinity, which I feel bad about, partially because one of the two lead, Mark Rosewater was leading the designers, and the other designer was Chris Mooney, and this was their first lead design, and they really cared about it. They did a really good job. The product from a singular draft experience is really great, but it was too much product at once. Stickers are a massive mistake. And the removal of Silver Border and move to the Acorn set made it a massive brain exhaustion. If I could pay attention to Unfinity as a cool Silver Border set that's really fun to play unlimited, and I don't have to pay attention to a single card in it beyond the fact of like sitting down to a limited environment and not even knowing what's going on and just having a fun time, that set's amazing. All in, even the stickers are cool. But the fact that I have to like care about these cards adds just that extra layer of brain fatigue that I don't need. Like, and was unnecessary before this year. And with the problem with Jumpstart 2022 is I think Jumpstart is an amazing product. The ones that come out with every single set, the ones that come out for beginners, I think that Jumpstart 2022 is a good format and it's fun and it's cool that one exists. But you could put some of that value into the standard, the Dominaria version of it, and just not have a whole set, because it was confusing. I didn't even realize when Jumpstart 2022 came out that it was different than Brothers War Jumpstart and Dominaria Jumpstart until I got in an argument with someone. They're like, these are 3 different sets. I was like, oh.
I think that when you talk about the confusion of Unfinity, I can distill it down to a single experience that I had. I texted Eric, our buddy, who we used to, we've talked about on the show, Highlander Gauntlet, for years and years. It was a format that we used to play a lot before COVID. And then, now they're starting to kind of bring it back. And it's super fun. Every single card not on the reserve list basically is legal. And I asked him, are mystery booster playtest cards legal? No. Okay, that's weird, because I feel like they should be, because they're all kind of regular cards. They're just weird. And then he was like, also, Unfinity is 100% illegal. And I was like, even the ones that are legal? And he says, yeah, no, none of us have any interest or ability or attention to track it. We just banned the whole set. And that's like, there's really cool cards that were printed that were like supposed to be legal in Legacy. That is like so hard to eat. Like, if you asked me to name a card from Unfinity that's legal in a competitive format, I like can't. I have no idea. What?
Dawn Half, right? That's like the easy one.
I've just ignored the set completely.
Okay. I think that's a mistake. I think I'll come out and Eric can come find me. That I think is a mistake, purely from it now works different than Legacy, right? It now works different than every other format that follows the same rules of what cards are legal and what cards aren't. That's why I don't like the set, right? I mean, we're now jumping around throughout the year, so I guess we're talking about Unfinity now. I guess we're talking about least favorite things. For the record, Jumpstart 2022 isn't a least favorite thing for me. I think it's a great set. I think it's really cool. The cards are cool. I love the Jumpstart format. I think Jumpstart is the best way to teach kids how to play Magic. I think it's fun for people that already know how to play Magic. I think that just it's too much, and the purpose to me, I think the best use, and I think a Jumpstart product yearly matters, and I think the ones that come out with the sets are better from the distribution model that's needed, right? Like the point of Jumpstart, the point of the theme boosters that they replaced was that's the stuff that at Walmart and Barnes and Noble and Target that moms buy for their kids when they're in the 3rd or 4th grade and they want to buy Magic cards and they want to just learn how to play or get started. Jumpstart packs are what you buy them. And for the Barnes and Noble, Walmart, and Target models, those need to be coming out with the draft sets because that's what the model they're used to buying these products from. That's when they do replens. And if you don't follow the system for those big corporations, then the product doesn't make sense to exist in the first place. And that's why there's a new one for every set. Could those be a little bit more exciting for regular players? Yes. Could the main Jumpstart 2022 not exist? Sure. I did a whole thread and then made a Tumblr post. You can follow me on Tumblr because Twitter might die at any moment, or be overrun by like ads of heinous things that I've been seeing recently. And the thread basically amounted to one of the problems with Baldur's Gate and Jumpstart, which is another set that came out this year, is that Wizards has branded formats and product names together, right? There is Commander's Legends. That is a draft format. When a box says Commander Legends on it, that means it's a 8-pod. You get 4 pods off of it. You draft a commander out of it. It's a 60 card deck. You draft 4 packs. Blah 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 blah. But that's also a brand. And when they built the brand the first time, it was basically Commander Horizons. Right. Commander Legends was Commander Legends was Modern Horizons, but for Commander, it had a bunch of really cool reprints into the format, plus a bunch of really new cards that worked well with it. Even had that kind of Modern Horizons vibe, where it was printing cards into the format with the way partners work. And then Baldur's Gate comes out, and it's like, no. The Commander Legends brand doesn't mean reprint set with cool cards for Commander. It means you are drafting a Commander format. And these cards are cool in Commander, but the point of this is a draftable format. And Jumpstart has that same problem, right? Where Jumpstart is 2 packs that are themed that you shuffle together, and then that's your deck. It's like basic sealed, and you battle someone else doing that. But that is also now the beginner intro product, as well as the exciting, I'm going to call it the adult version of it that's meant for expert players. And that's confusing. So get rid of it.
Yeah, I think like the products aren't always winners, right? Anyway, like in any given year of Magic releases, like some, 3 out of 4, hopefully in a good year are good, or, whatever, 4 out of 6 or something like that. So it's okay to have products that are kind of misses. Like it's impossible to have all winners. In fact, I would say that it's kind of impressive that Wizards and their design team has had so many winners. The percentage is actually remarkably high of really good sets and really good products. I think the issue is that it makes the mediocre and even the above average sets seem kind of forgettable when you have a year like this. And that makes us all have a bad taste for things that don't really need to be that way. Like when a bad set's a bad set, we all kind of know it. When a set is like just okay, where it's kind of good, but you have to play it for 2 or 3 months, you kind of fall in love with certain aspects of it. You have a good memory of it. It still sticks in your mind as a thing that happened that was relevant. And right now, the ones that are mediocre to bad are they're almost like they're deleted. That makes me so sad for people like Chris who like are designing a set, and like it's taken their sweat, their blood, sweat, and tears, and their time to really make an exciting thing that didn't quite feel like it got a fair chance. And so anyway, go ahead.
And and I think like doing this in order is boring, and we've already gone off the rails. So I'm just going to touch upon different products as we talk about them, because the next one I want to talk about is Baldur's Gate. The first real limited environment, or sorry, the second limited environment, because this is the second Dungeons and Dragons one. Follow up to the last one, they kind of took 2 different ideas they had, they smushed them together. They kind of, in a weird way, took like one of the strengths of the Dungeons and Dragons set a year ago was that it kind of rode the curtails of the license behind it, where people were excited about Dungeons and Dragons things, to pay for the fact that it was relatively underpowered, which I think is an interesting feature for the Lord of the Rings set in the future. And then they took Commander Legends and they took that format and applied to it. I think that in some ways was a mistake for the set. Like, I think the big flaw with Baldur's Gate was value, right? If you ask anyone what the complaint for that set really is, it's value. There's a new complaint where it's ruining legacy, and we can touch upon that. But I think honestly, if they just put Dockside Extortionist as a mythic in the set, it immediately becomes like fine. Like they just were missing one high profile reprint.
I'm also looking at the list right now of Baldur's Gate. Two things. I know a lot of these cards from having looked up for commander decks, like just like coming across them in my deck database or whatever. There's 651 cards in this set. That's a lot of cards. It's a huge set.
I don't mostly know.
When did sets become so massive? When did that become like normal?
It's not all the time. I think it's mostly these like special sets that are meant to be a little bit more like event convention sets, like because the thing with Baldur Gate is the commander the Command Fest season of this year exists because of Baldur's Gate Limited and Double Masters too, right? It was like, we have 2 commander focused limited environments. We need Grand Prix to fire for all of them, so we're gonna just come out with 16 events that are gonna be about Commander Baldur's Gate being the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think like one of the things that comes to mind for me in this conversation is the whole, we've all heard the phrase a billion times, right? Not every product is for every player. And some people have a huge issue with that. Like it's a major point of contention for a lot of Magic players. The idea that there are products that are released that do not necessarily, and I think Magic 30 is the biggest example of this lately, where it's like not every product is for every player, quotes.
So I have maybe controversial thoughts on this, because I don't think Magic 30 is a good product. I want to get that out of the gate. Like, I think it is a bad product. I think it is, but not a bad product. Like, I don't think it's evil that it exists. I think it's dumb to buy it. It was a dumb idea to make it. I think it's a product that if you're going to make that product, you had to make it that way. And so you shouldn't have. But I think it affects no one.
Yeah, I agree. I would add to that, by the way, just like my thought on it is that the more I've thought about it, I agree it's a bad product. I used to actually think it was fine. The reason it's so bad is that it encourages you to gamble in a way that I think is really problematic and stupid.
Sure.
And I think if they had taken the concept of we want to introduce these powerful 19 cards, basically, give or take, or whatever, 22 cards or something, Wheel of Fortune. We want to introduce proxy versions, like token proxy versions with different backs. There was a different way to do that. There was an easier way to do that I think would have been totally fine. You could have given those away as some sort of promo where it was much more like
it should have never been for sale.
Yes.
That the answer to Magic 30 packs is it should have never been for sale. Should have been giveaways the stores, giveaways at conventions. It should be a thing that comes with your convention pass, right? If you buy the $600, you get, or the I think it was $1,000 Black Lotus badge at Magic 30 or Magic Cons, you got 6 of them or whatever. Like that's what they should have been used for. Brilliant use, right? Stores at WPN stores getting a minimum of a box or more, like just should have never been for sale. That's the answer to the product. And that didn't happen. Whatever.
Because then it's a pure gamble, and exactly the way that like you used to go spend in any given set when there was a really expensive mythic, like back like World Wake, you'd play like the Jace lottery, you'd like buy a pack for $4 and hope to open a Jace to make $100. It was fun and exciting, right? You knew you were probably not going to open anything good, but you could. It was possible, and the cost for entry was so low because it was a booster pack. This is the same concept as that, where you're like, almost everything I'm opening here is trash. But if I hit something, but it's $250 to play that lottery, which like is just a feel bad for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Every person is not.
And it's not. It doesn't matter that this product existed. It doesn't matter that Wizards made it to me. That's my main point. Like, it's a dumb product to buy. You should not buy it. Anyone who buys it is making a dumb mistake. Therefore, Wizards making a product for them to buy is, I guess, problematic. But I don't care because just
a dumb mistake if they're conscious of finance. If they have unlimited money and they want it for fun, go for it. It's yours. Don't even worry about it.
It's bad value, right? It's like someone did the math with a calculator and just like you aren't ever going. You could open 1,000 of these and you're just never going. It's never going to be worth it. And it's like. Fine. But when it comes down to, and I guess that's our Magic 30 conversation, when it comes down to like not every product is for you, that's fine as long as the reason that you get into trouble or Wizards gets into trouble for that is that the most common time it comes up is when it's not every product is for you, especially the cool one that you can't afford to play because we overpriced it. Right.
Right.
If
Right.
I'm fine, secret layers are the best thing to exist. Not to exist. That's not totally true. But like, who cares, right? Like, it's another, like, other than the like exclusive art one, the exclusive mechanic ones, which they already fixed. Those are now showing up in the packs, so that is even gone. From the perspective of like cool alter art versions of stuff of cards that exist already that you never need to buy into, fine, skip them. Like, and that product isn't for you, and that's fine because you don't need it. The problem with like stuff like Modern Horizons, and it's why I think Modern Horizons is a much bigger sin than Magic 30, is you can't be a modern player without having Modern Horizons cards. And you could have been a modern player before those packs came out, and now you're locked out of the format. And that's true with standard cards, but standard cards aren't $10 a pack. And that or $7, whatever the $7 a pack. And that is the not everything is for you, except when it is for you, but you can't afford it, is when it becomes a little bit more problematic. The commander decks, if you're not a commander player, who cares? And if you are a commander player, also who cares if there's too many commander decks a year? I think like they should limit it to not have more than one 5-faction commander deck product come out a year, or 4-faction. I think it should be like 2 per set, other than the one faction set that has 5, like New Capenna. But you can ignore all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I also, again, like from the perspective of like playing 2 different formats, and the whole idea of a product being for every player versus not. I think that when you're talking about premium product that is expensive, and it's not, and it includes new cards. That's actually that's like an important caveat. Expensive new product that includes new cards. Like, for instance, like the Warhammer 40K decks having like the premium Surge foil version, I think that's a great example of like, I wanted to get Garrison Starn. The only way I could get that card was to either spend $300 on that deck, or to buy the Surge foil for $46. It's a rare. It's not even a mythic. There was no way for me to go ahead.
There's the non-Surge foil one, though. Or you mean a foil one?
I could have gotten the regular one, and it was like $12, but I wanted a foil. Like that was the card I wanted, right? Like that, but like the idea that card, it was like just a like direct. It wasn't even like a face card in the set. It was like a tertiary card included in this product, and the foil version of this card was almost $50. Is like out the gate, like it's just, I guess because it's such an exclusive product, it's so hard to get. Like it doesn't exist anywhere else.
Well, but it does exist somewhere else. You don't need to own a foil. Like, premium versions of cards don't need to exist, right? Your deck is totally playable in a tournament with a card that is $12. $12 out the gate is fine, I think. I mean, like, there are other cards that come out of packs and or precons that are that expensive. So I don't like, True Name Nemesis was $70, right? Out of the box.
Sure.
Like the need to have a foil, that's kind of my point, right? You don't need any secret layer card. Not like the ones that are nice, like the more needed a secret layer card is, the more likely it is that it's good that it got a reprint, because otherwise, before that reprint, it was probably a $60 card that you can now buy for $30. And then you get 4 other cool looking art cards, like Concordant Crossroads was a $40 card. What's the 2 mana tap for how many colors of mana you have?
Bloom
Tender was an $80 card, and they put it in a secret layer, and you could have bought it for $25, and you got 4 other cards with it. So I think like these premium style versions that have a premium to them, like I have no problem with the Heartless Hitsugugu pink card being like a $700 card, because the chances of getting one is super low.
Sure. Like you're saying rarity and scarcity when it comes to like any kind of collectible, if it's not necessary to play, is who cares? It's just a cool thing that exists. It's available. You can win the lottery one day and open it. It's kind of the whole point of like why masterpieces were such a fun thing, and like ultimately why that has become such an easy include in like most sets, because like you don't need to own any of those cards. If you get lucky and you happen to open the really cool version, it's awesome.
It's so much better that the expensive card in a set is the Junji Ito Elish Norn foil with the Phyrexian foiling pattern, then Jace is $150, but it's because every standard deck is playing Jace.
Well, I mean, so this creates the current face of 2022 collectible Magic, which is that and every single card that is a regular Magic card that is playable in standard and like necessary to play has been significantly devalued by the new system, the new model, right? Like that everything we're talking about plays into exactly that. I got the other night, I'm not too proud to tell this story. I came home the other night, a little drunk, and I was like, you know what? I want to open some booster packs. Only booster packs I had was this big box of Chaos Draft packs I had collected. And I was like, okay, I can't open any of these expensive packs because these are all important. I've like collected these. Like I need these for Chaos Drafts. But all of the like chaff that I had been saving up to have, right? Like just like to add in, I had like 4 Brothers War packs. I had 5 New Capenna packs. I had a collector's booster from Dominaria United, newer stuff. I had like 1 like Dungeons and Dragons pack. I like opened all of them. I opened like 10 packs. Just like, you know what? Why not? All the good stuff. And I opened a 7th edition Chinese pack because I was greedy. And I opened a Sunweb. It was worth like 8 cents. Nothing of value. But all of those standard packs that I opened, I was shocked because I was like, none of the cool things I'm opening that look really awesome or like seem really cool are worth anything. I was like opening stuff and I was like, oh, Rigo, like that, you know, Streetwise Mentor, that card that was like from New Capenna. I got like a showcase full art foil Rigo. I was like, oh, this card's dope. I like this card. It's worth 8 cents.
Right.
Right. It's that's the reality to opening, you know, draft boosters and even to some
because you didn't open the Art Deco foil version, which was worth $12, right? It's they now have premiumized, cooler versions of cards that are worth more, but it does mean like once again, if you want to make a Rigo deck, now it's 8 cents. You don't have to spend $5 to get the cool Rigo.
And I had a Rigo deck, and that commander is so cool looking. Like it's a great way to build the deck. But I was shocked. I was like, oh wow. So all of these cards that I'm opening that are cool looking, that are rares, none of them are worth much of anything. But had I opened the really cool, expensive chase version of one of these things, all good. Would have been great, right? And it is interesting. I the other night I went over to Buddy's house, played get some games of Commander, and he had bought 3-4 boxes of Brothers War, 2 collector's booster boxes. And he was like, hey, I have all these commons and uncommons. You can have anything you want. Sorry, commons, uncommons, and rares. Take anything you want, right? He was like, just whatever. Like I was like, the only stuff I opened that I wanted, I kept already. And I was going through and I got like 5 Mishra's Baubles. I got an old border foil Mishra's Bauble, right? He was like, don't care, go for it, right? I looked it up, it's $2. Mm-hmm. That card at one time was like $40, mm-hmm. like back before the reprints, right? But like, because in Brothers War, the point is that if you open up something cool in the premium slot, it's going to be like old border foil Mox Amber or, you know, something really cool. And like, it means that like, again, the old border foil Ornithopter that I opened is worth 24 cents. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like stuff that you would think based on what it is, its playability, it looks really cool, would be expensive, isn't anymore. And I guess, do you think that's cool? Do you like that aspect that stuff like other than the exact premium stuff, even that middle class of stuff is really cheap? Do you think that's cool?
Yeah. I mean, it makes standard the cheapest it's ever been. Like from a game perspective, absolutely. Like stores have you want to open collector boosters now, right? Like that's the booster boxes. If you're going to open boxes, open up collector ones. That's where you're going to get the value out of them. For individual players who want to play the game, it's the cheapest it's ever been for standard. Yeah. I can buy a top 10 standard deck for $40. The most expensive deck in standard is $450, and it's partially because it's playing 4 Liliana of the Veils and 4 Sheoldreds. But there's a ton of decks in between those two, ranging from 100 to 400 in the top 10 decks in the format. And honestly, that has more to do with just Sheoldred is such a standard is broken from a power level perspective around those cards more than anything. Like mono black is too strong, and that could change with new Phyrexia or whatever. But I think that people can open packs and gain value, right? You're just no longer opening a basic standard draft pack. You shouldn't but you shouldn't have been opening those for months, for years anyways. There's a reason I have a closet filled with just like my prize winnings from FNMs and pre-releases, because I never, like, you know how many Battle for Zendikar packs I own that I'm never going to open because it's terrible to play limited and it's terrible value to open them, that I just like won now. But if there were collector boosters that every single one had a expedition inside of them, but like most of the expedition lands are stuff like Ghost Quarter with cool artwork, and Reliquary Tower with cool artwork, Command Tower with cool artwork, but then like some of them were fetch lands. Sick. I would open those.
I agree completely. This gets me back to the thing we were talking about at the beginning of the show, and this is obviously a memory from 2021, but I will share it. Most of the cards I opened in my Modern Horizons 2 collector's booster box that I opened are worth way less now than they were when I opened it, and they have gone down significantly for the same reason that we're talking about. However, opening that box was the most fun I've ever had opening a box of Magic cards. It was so exciting. Every pack had something cool that I wanted to open, that I was excited to look at. And despite the fact that the cards have gone down in value, which makes the experience looking back like, kind of a little bit like, I guess it seems like it had less value or something. That's the point. That's why you spent, I can't remember what it costs, 400, 300, something like that. It was like the most expensive box of Magic cards I've ever bought and opened.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely pricey. It was like a treat to myself, but it was so fun to be opening like these etched foil, fetch lands and swords and like Ignoble Hierarch and all these cool things.
I think like Modern Horizons is this really interesting thing, and that's not really what today's about, but we can kind of touch upon this because it's the end of the year. We're reviewing our lives. Modern Horizons ended up being this really interesting thing, because I think Modern Horizons in general is a mistake. I think it's been bad for Modern, but I think it's not as bad as people give it credit for. I think the last 5 years have been very tumultuous to Modern, right? I think that like we did the math at one point, 50% of the format is cards printed in the last 5 years. Of that, 25% of them are Modern Horizons cards. But that means the other 25% are just cards printed between War of the Spark and Ikoria, basically. And the only reason that number isn't higher is because actually less cards have been banned from Modern Horizons sets than they've been banned from standard sets over that time. So it's a little wonky there. I also think that like a lot of the sets came out during COVID, and that has its own ramifications for which cards you own. I think one of the reasons Standard is also unpopular right now is because every single person who wants to play Standard is basically starting at that, like when you first started playing Magic and you were only drafting cards and you only had half of the Standard pool's worth of cards to build your decks. Luckily, Standard's a lot cheaper, but I think people are just grabbing onto that. But Modern right now, unless you're buying like the money pile style decks, but Modern in general, if you want to buy a top tier deck, is less expensive to buy in from a new player perspective than ever before. If you're a brand new person entering the format and you want to buy a Modern deck, fetch lands are collectively an average of $15 or enemy fetches.
Crazy how cheap, like offensively, like it makes me like
20,
question my own reality how cheap they are, because I legitimately like look at these cards. I traded a friggin' etched foil Marsh Flats the other night as like a throw in because it was $15. I was like, man, there was when I bought this card in my mind, like there was a time when this was gonna be worth like $80, like for sure. Like
it was.
Yeah, crazy.
So like yes, you need the elementals. Yes, you probably need Ragavans. Yes, you need Urza Sagas. These are all cards that just all come from the exact same set that also gives the format a samey feel beyond just the fact that like the play styles are similar like they were with Companions. Now it just feels like all the cards are from the same limited environment, which would be bad. If this was a standard set, that would be considered problematic. But and if you're a continuing Modern player, the value of your deck, the cards that you had before, has gone down, with Tarmogoyfs, Liliana, Snapcaster Mages all being $20, while you've now had to rebuy in because you had to buy Modern sets. And that, I think, is the real conflict with the Modern Horizon sets, which I think is a net negative. I just do think like making fetch lands less expensive is good. They need to do it to the elementals, Ragavans, Ren and Sixes, Force Negations, etc. But I think they hopefully plan on doing it. And I think also there's a world where they were looking for, ways, in some ways, I always felt like the Modern Horizon sets were just testing the foot in the water, just letting Modern be every card that they print into every draft set that comes out, like not Commander products, maybe, so that like Soul Ring and stuff like that doesn't get included. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what that happens. I do think the Lord of the Rings set next year is going to be underpowered.
I was going to say, I think there are two ideas with Modern Horizons, with the first one and the second one, that I think were realized already. The first one is that by the time the first Modern Horizons set was being designed, it was becoming clearer and clearer to Wizards that Legacy was dying and Vintage was going to be unsustainable. Both, really, but for different reasons. But neither format was going to be 5 or 10 years from now a heavily or commonly played format. Like they would become, Vintage would become the same as Old School, and really Legacy would become like what Vintage used to be. Just because the availability of cards was so low, and because Modern would become the primary Eternal format because of the just sheer size of the card pool. And if that was going to be the case, unless they just printed cards from Legacy, like the Wastelands of the world, into Modern, which they may at some point, it was okay for it to feel like it was competitive and high powered in the same way. That was fine. They didn't mind. It was okay to do that. Like inevitably the format was going to become that anyway. So I think that was like a big focus and reason to do that. I think the other thing though that man, and this is the part of the whole like every product for every person or the alternative of that that's so hard, is that there is a schedule of release and a cycle of product release that we all pay attention to as consumers. Like we like it, we talk about it, it's part of our life, it's fun, it's news. But when they manufacture a set and they put it at market and they have to like they have like an earnings sheet and they have like board, like members of the board, they have to balance the certain amount of what they're going to get back on the investment. This year obviously proved they could release as many products as they wanted, but in general, it's like we have this many sets, they have to make this much money. So why does Unfinity get crazy cool Steam vents and stuff printed into the set? It's because they have to have people buy it. Why does Modern Horizons 2 get Ragavan and these cards that are so expensive? Because they know they have to have people spend money on the product. When the product doesn't have any reason for us to buy it, there's no like incentive, the product isn't going to sell. They can't make a product.
You have Baldur's Gate Legends, where the place where its cards are powerful is Legacy. No one plays Legacy. Commander players didn't really latch on to a lot of cards super powerfully on it. It doesn't have any modern staples in it. The set that was successful, Commander Legends, included the partner mechanic, which was not parasitic like background was, right? Like choose a background and it being super parasitic, versus partner, which became super ingrained into the culture of Commander, which I mean, my like least popular opinion by far is that I think partner is one of the best mechanics in Commander, but I definitely am alone in that. But the kind of what I was going to say with the Lord of the Rings set, to your point, is the Lord of the Rings set doesn't need that, because you're going to get a bunch of people that love Lord of the Rings buying the Lord of the Rings set, versus and kind of what they hoped with Commander Legends. You're like, oh, Baldur's Gate, people love D&D. We're going to get all the D&D Magic players back. And it just happened to be too soon after the last one. So that group didn't come back to the well quick enough. And the regular audience was like, no, I don't like this. So,
and look, we experienced this, like, with Kess, we experienced the reality of this, which is like, if you have a house product that you create, that you are responsible for the grassroots marketing on, you believe is a cool thing, and you're telling people how cool it is, and you believe it's great. And in our case, we're lucky. We have products that are actually great. They're the best of what they are. People buy them, right? But there's always the risk if we make one and put it out there and it isn't well received and it fails, there's no reason for people to buy that product that is failing other than we thought it was cool, versus when we get a license for an anime property or something else and we put it in stores, even if it's not the best version, which in our case it is, but even if it wasn't, people would buy it because they know what it is. They would just buy it. That's how it works. That's why, it's literally why that happens. And that's why I think Wizards is so interested in investing the way they are, because they know there's a little bit more cachet in collectors will buy this, whether we put a chase card in it or not. But it costs them more to make that by a wide margin, by like a huge margin, I'm sure.
Well, you're talking about like, does Wizards need to put power level into the sets? It's hard because I think some of it's also just like they're designing cards because they think they're going to be really good for Modern. I think like this is the last thing I want to say about Modern Horizons because it didn't come out this year. We shouldn't be talking about this anyways. That's not the theme of the podcast today. If you ask any person who's a grinder or a tournament player that's playing Modern right now, Modern's the best it's ever been from a gameplay perspective. Ignore cost, ignore the nostalgia for the cards you're playing. That's the word on the street. That's the statement about the format. Best format that's ever existed, except for the fact that a lot of the cards coming from these three sets, and you don't have the nostalgic feel you have, and it doesn't feel like there's no longer home for them, even though that kind of is Pioneer. Part of that is because removal is more universal. Like the one thing that these sets did that's I've not talked about enough, I think, is it just heavily streamlined the removal in the format to mean that there's actually good answers for the multitude of strategies you may face. Endurance gives an extraordinarily powerful version of Graveyard Hate. Fury eats creatures up. Solitude is a free way to eat creature combo decks. Force and Negation lets you fight those. Ren 6 kills X1s. There, that is definitely a part of one of the reasons Modern Horizons has made what pro players have had a problem with the format go away, right? It's no longer two ships passing in the night. It's two ships bashing against each other. The problem we've talked about is expensive. Do you have anything else you want to say about Modern Horizons before I jump into the four sets that released this year, the standard sets?
What I was going to say was that when you talked about pro players and their opinion of the way that this format exists, and I think it comes down to quite simply, and like this is, we don't need to like dive any further into it because I think we've talked a lot about Modern Horizons, but we're about to talk about standard sets, and I think it's important for us to note Magic was invented and created 30 years ago, and there was a system of release and design that for the first 5 or 10 years was a little tenuous. They didn't quite know what they were doing in terms of how to, balance stuff. Like there were mistakes made. There were sets in there that created insane standard environments like the Urza sets and things like that, Mirrodin. But as we kind of got into that like New World Order, late 2000s run, they started to get a pretty good sense of how to design standard sets and how many cards they could push in a standard set to maintain standard, and at the time add to extended, and as we went add to modern. And every format, because that system was the only system in existence, there was nothing else. There was no commander sets at the time. There was no Modern Horizons. There was no way to print additionally added powerful cards. You couldn't have that drastic of an impact on literally any format. Like any standard set that got printed would have 2 to 10 cards that were pretty cool, and you would find a way to sort of add those, and the formats were very slow to move. Because of the change, that 20-year ecosystem that was created, roughly, give or take 20 years, changed pretty drastically, actually. And it started to happen originally with the first commander sets. That was like when you had True Name and Scavenging Ooze and cards getting added to eternal formats that were very powerful. And as soon as Horizons hit, that was when it was like, oh my God, okay, you can actually introduce 25 cards that are going to have an impact with one set. This format that we were playing no longer resembles the same format. It's unfixable, right? We can't ban a card to fix it. It is now forever changed. Because that became the precedent, those pros you're talking about, their attitude is justified because the old thing was very reliable. It was slower to react. I would say that compared to Magic now, it was boring, not in a bad way, but in a like it just didn't move very fast way. But that is the truth. We can never go back to that unless we stop completely. But at this point, most formats have been so affected by all these products. These products sell well. It's never going to change back. This is the world we now live in, and it will always be this way. It will always print a multitude of cool, different, and creative products that affect these formats.
I do think it'll slow down. Like, for instance, I think the amount of products that came out between September and December of this year is never going to happen again. Partially because there were like worldwide flaws of production issues that caused some of that. I think also lessons were learned. I think those two things together, right? I think next year will be a lot of product, but I think they learned their lesson this year to the extent that literally Hasbro's stock price was being affected by too much products being released at once, that they're going to slow that process down.
Sure.
And next year, we're not going to have the same moment either because they're not going to have two of the sets that were supposed to come out early in the year come out at the end of the year because of delays. And so I think this is the most we're ever going to see. I agree from the Secret Lair world and the collector booster world. I think like stuff what Brothers War did with the ancient artifacts and what we got out of these sets from Strixhaven with the Mystical Archive. I think that's going to be once a year. Once that's going to have a cool thing like that. But there's just going to be cool stuff. And even like when we're already seeing New Phyrexia, they're doing cool treatments. They have Junji Ito artwork for Elish Norn. They have some amazing foiling they have 3 different amazing foiling processes on cards that you can see already on the cards that they've shown off. And I think that's the stuff that's going to continue. It's going to be really cool. And is, to me, the thing that is good for game players. The big question is how good it is for LGSs, which I can't answer because I don't even interact.
I mean, they said on that stream, like literally the other day on that stream, they made a point of saying we still care about LGSs, which if you have to say that in the stream is it's a tough look. Like I feel like that is a tough thing for them to bounce back from. And it's hard going and playing FNM at an LGS and talking to the employees there. It just doesn't feel, it doesn't seem like the people at those LGSs feel very supported by Wizards. And
there is also, we are still getting wrecked by COVID, right? Like they haven't bounced fully back from that. They're starting to, and Wizards' strategy needs to kind of readjust back to having the LGS be a part of that strategy. But I think that process is happening. All right, 4 sets. We're running out of time anyways. Let's go through it. With all of those problems we just discussed, this might be one of the best years of standard sets of all time. I would like Neon Kamigawa might be one of the best sets ever.
Oh yeah, it's a great set. Phenomenal.
Right. The whole world, the building, everything they did with it, the draft format, the characters, the story they told, everything about it, gangbusters. New Capenna, one of the coolest words they developed, probably the weakest of the 3 that we're going to talk about, but still a really, really cool set, a revisit to Tricolor, which is always really popular. Limited was not in the top end, but from a world building perspective, a lot of people really related to it. The next set, Dominaria United, a return to Dominaria, a fun limited environment, a really, really cool story beat moment, a lot of cool cards coming from that set. Maybe the most forgettable because then you follow up with Brothers War, which ends up being one of the best limited environments of all time. A really, really, really cool throwback set, recreating one of the biggest moments in Magic history. Most people I talk to that I'm like, they're like, oh, I used to play Magic back in the day. Is Urza still a guy? You got a Black Lotus? Like, those are the 2 words they remember. And we got to see it happen.
Yeah, I think of those 4 sets, the one that I played a significant amount of limited was Brothers War. I've played a ton. I would say it's a really fun limited format. I do think it lacks the Burning Vengeance spider spawning type of deck, in my opinion. It doesn't have that. By the way, those are both Innistrad references for anybody that didn't know. Grindy decks that do cool things that are outside of just attacking and blocking necessarily, or like when I play Brothers War Limited now, I like force green. I just know it's the best, or it's like that or like blue white, but it's always creature decks. It's always like very aggro, tricky sort of. Those always are the decks that win. It has other stuff to it. It is a great format though. I've had a lot of fun playing it. I feel like it's nicely balanced. The removal is really well balanced, which is always good for a limited format. Like United for me is the one that is definitely the most forgettable. It has a handful of things that I think are really cool. I love the Cycle of Lords, the 2-drops. I think it's a really great design. I think they're very fun. I think a lot of the rest of the set didn't have the splash that the first Dominaria set had from 5 years ago or 4 years ago, whenever that was. United just feels a little like lackluster, I guess. Yeah, like I opened 3 or 4 collector boosters and just found myself thinking like, nothing I'm opening is cool. This is all kind of just whatever. Like I don't care about any of these legends. So that's the last 2. But played a little bit of limited in Capenna. I love the flavor of Capenna. I think it's a really cool set. I think like the art deco noir stuff. We talked about this back when the set was spoiled. It has like elements of Batman the animated series a lot for me, which is rest in peace Kevin Conroy. It has like that vibe, which is really fun. Obviously multicolor sets are always super cool. There's nothing in that set that I want to open. I don't care about any of the cards. I'm trying to think if there's a single card in that set that if I'd opened like an etched crazy art deco foil, I would have lost it. And like basically nothing. So I think
it's the legendaries, right? I think like New Capenna to me, the world building is amazing. The characters are really cool. Any of the legends in Art Deco are sweet. Ledger Shredder is the card you actually want to open.
The good card, yeah.
Which is just like, the new Tarmogoyf in a lot of ways. But I think like in Art Deco Xander, in Art Deco, any of the 5 like demon president or I'm forgetting what they're called at this point, but leaders of the different factions.
Sure.
Like I think their assistants, their second in the commands. Like I think all of those in Art Deco style is like the chase stuff of that set.
I guess you have the Trilance, the cycling
Triomes, 4 Triomes for sure.
Yeah, those are all pretty good to open.
I think that set's a really interesting one because I think the limited environment is medium. It's not the best. The world building is really great. There's some really cool. It's like one of the better commander sets I think for the year by like a wide margin. And I think that there is also like the story is a weird one because it kind of ends on this big cliffhanger. Now we're kind of getting the follow through on that, so that's cool. And there's just like some weird pieces to that puzzle that didn't kind of play out super well. So it's an interesting story set. But I will say like Triome or Tricycle Lands and the different all the different really cool legendary creatures from the set are easily the best part of it, and that's important.
I guess unlicensed Hearst is a thing.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, the card's good. And then you get to Kamigawa, which to me, of the 4, when it comes from a pure design perspective, is my favorite. I think Brothers War is the one that rivals it, but I think from a like looking at it and like the other day I was looking through artifacts, multicolor artifacts, and just like cheap CMC artifacts for like a cool deck that I wanted to build, and I was like, I kept coming across like really cool cards from Neon Dynasty that were like reconfigure or like just uncommons that were awesome, and like it's just a really fun set. I love the vibe of it. I love the art. I love the design of it. I think it's balanced really well. Like I think the power level is not outrageously high, but it still feels really cool. The 5 channel lands are super awesome. They're some of my favorite cards printed in quite a while. Like I kind of love all of them. I like they feel super playable to me. Yeah, I think of those 4 sets, I think the purest best set is Neon Dynasty, and I think my favorite, maybe because I played it the most, environment is Brothers War, and I also like the what is it, classic mythic, what artifact? What is it? What are they called? The retro artifacts in Brothers War.
I don't know what their name is. I've kind of been wondering that this whole podcast.
Ancient artifacts. Did you say that? Okay, whatever.
I made up a cool name earlier. Ancient Artifacts.
You did. I thought you were right. I thought you were telling the truth. I thought you were correct.
That was off the top of my head. I have no idea. Oh. I mean, like, as I said, like one of my complaints is all the products is I like just started playing Brothers War Limited last weekend and I've loved it. And I was like, oh man, I wish we paid attention to this set when it came out 3 weeks ago.
Those retro border artifacts, they didn't actually put a crazy amount of good cards into the sheet, which is really interesting. It's not like stock. It's not like masterpieces. Like getting a really good card, you like Mox Amber, which retro border. Go in there. I traded for one the other night. I got one now finally.
I opened it. It was like pretty hype. I also got like a bunch of the Transformer cards.
Oh yeah. I got a bunch of those too. But yeah, I think that of those sets, Kamigawa is my favorite, and Brothers War would be number 2, and the other 2 are fine. But like a pretty good year, I would say. Like we didn't have a loser. We didn't have a full on strikeout set.
No, I think what's it called is probably my least favorite, and that is not saying a lot because I pretty much I like it a lot, which is Dominaria United, right? Yes. Where it's like that's probably the set I liked the least. It's not that I didn't love it. It's the most generic feeling. It feels the most like a core set, which like we haven't talked about the fact that this is the second year with no core sets, and they're basically gone, replaced by these fall set, the double fall set period, which have always kind of felt like an AB, like almost the mini blocks are back. Now next year that won't be true. It'll be Ixalan and Eldraine. We're going to Eldraine and Ixalan next fall. Thank you.
So two questions there.
You are unhelpful, Ben.
Sorry. The first one is, do you like that we go back to so many old worlds? Like, do you think that the fact that we return so many times is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing. great thing.
Okay, good. Familiarity. People get excited about something they know. Okay, great. Second thing is a set like Dominaria United, which in so many ways, because of Magic's classic feel, we had a Dominaria set 4 years ago. So much of the theme of United played on old mechanics, old like throwbacks, right? Like it kind of in the end, because it's a classic format, feels like a core set, like you said. And like when it comes to me, like I think about those 5 lords we talked about, the Merfolk Lord, the Goblin, the Elf. Opening those at rare does feel like the kind of thing you would open in like an M10. Like it feels just like the kind of thing that the old core sets would give you. Now, the whole set.
I mean, even had even had a high profile reprint like Liliana the Veil, right? That's like classic core set shenanigans.
See, so for me, it just feels like maybe this is the old man get off my lawn in me, but like there are things about old Magic I'm fine with. Like I'd be happy to go back to core sets. I liked core sets. The way that they did core sets, like the like M10 core set style, like I enjoyed them. I when they came out, I always played them. The limited environments always felt like they were fairly straightforward. You had a couple cool cards. I was happy to get some new cards. I don't need. But go ahead.
I don't know.
I can see your face, and you want to respond. I would like to know what you're thinking.
Okay. I think we're living in the best of both worlds, right? Like where like because I miss blocks, right? I will agree with you that I miss blocks. I miss the story being told, not all happening at once and feeling like it all happened in a week. So if I wasn't paying attention, it's gone, right? Like I like that Innistrad took place over 2 sets. The story that happened in Innistrad was fine, but I liked that we had a block. I liked that the like return to Dominaria and then flashback to its past happened over a 2 set period of time. I'm excited for March of the Machines next year. I think that in general, having the double fall set be connected is cool and great. I think that the core set, when like it just doesn't have an identity that I need super badly, like as long as we're getting it in other places and stuff like that in other places, and it's kind of what they're using Jumpstart for at this point.
So when you're talking about that, you're saying that from a Magic consumer who's like trying to follow the story and like wants to like watch the characters you like have moments represented in cards, the core set interrupts that in a major way. Like it gives you like a very like sort of disconnected, or in the case that sometimes those core sets would have, they would have those moments, but they were like disconnected from the rest of the year, right?
I mean, the best core sets of all time were all story core sets, right? Magic Origins, Magic 15 with Garrick. I mean, Magic M10 with the recreation of it, I guess, is a different case. But like when we got to recent years, the Chandra flashback set, the Nicol Bolas flashback set, right? When they were prequels, like those are the best core sets in my mind. And then those are just story sets. They're just backstories of those characters.
That's interesting you say that, because I was thinking as I was going through old cards this week, I played, I guess, a pretty good amount of Magic Origins. I remember playing it a lot, and I came across a lot of foils and just cards that I had drafted during that time. And I was reminded of like, this was a core set. This was actually a core set, but it was a really cool core set. It felt like it was doing something interesting or like sort of unique within the confines of like Magic history. So you got reprints, you got cool new stuff, you got very basic seeming stuff, like stuff that like didn't feel like it was pushing the, which is exactly what Dominaria, the new one, feels like. I actually think Dominaria United feels maybe as close to Origins as a set has in a long time. Like
it also like I'm just like looking through Magic Dominaria United cards. Like it has the Painlands as a cycle.
Yeah, right. That's also like a classic core set,
the most core set vibe thing you could ever do. Like I think this is just a core set, which is maybe like a grand realization other people have had that I'm just having now much later.
Yeah.
Here's my complaint with Dominaria United. I think Dominaria, the set, was this big throwback set. It was the first time we got to see a lot of these characters on these cards. It had a lot of these really cool mechanics that were like incorporating legendaries and artifacts and enchantment sagas all together. That was really cool. Great set. The problem with the sequel to that set is so much of that set relied on that being a novelty and unique that doing it again kind of is boring. Like, now we're just doing Dominaria again, which is a core set, but maybe that's the point. If Dominaria United actually is a secret core set that all of us kind of miss that it's a core set, and maybe this should be a tech talk that works, but if Dominaria United is a core set, then it's perfect. It has, as you said, it has a cycle of lords, it has Painlands, it has a powerful reprint Planeswalker in Liliana the Veil, it has like a cool throwback mechanics. But if I were to do a Dominaria return set next, I think I would just totally make it different. I wouldn't try and make a sequel to Dominaria and Dominaria United. I would try and do a different thing that's like throwback to Tempest and have spikes and slivers in the same set, or a throwback to, and that's kind of what Brothers War does, right? Like that's an Antiquities throwback. Like that does do that. But I think Dominaria United, or Dominaria and Brothers War both succeeded. Dominaria United failed by not leaning into a vibe beyond Legendary Matters, which is no longer a theme that I think is leanable to, because every set does that because of Commander.
I think for me, because I know we're going to wrap up here in a second, I would end this thought we've now talked about, I don't have the count in front of me, but it feels like about 9 products total for 2022, maybe more, maybe 11.
Let's count. I'm counting. Dominaria United. Okay, so the 4 standard sets. Let's just knock that out.
4 standard.
The 2 the Commander Legend sets, Unfinity. We talked about Jumpstart plus the other 2 Jumpstarts. We talked about let's pull these together as secret layers and the collector, the pack, fun pack, whatever. So we're at 11, and we didn't talk about Dominaria Remastered. We didn't talk about
Magic 30 came out.
We did talk about Magic 30. We didn't talk about Double Masters 2
this year too?
At all. We didn't talk about Warhammer. We did talk about Warhammer. We talked about for a little bit. So that's 15 sets. And I'm missing, and there's no way we barely talked about Commander products, which is there's 4 of those.
No, you talked about a few. I think you just miscounted slightly. I think it's like 13, maybe 14. But you double counted a few things just now.
No, I think we're at 19.
Maybe. Well, whatever. Okay. Point being, guys, that if it's 15 or it's 19,
20. Really, I'm saying 20. Hard 20. 20 products this year.
My point was to say the biggest sin committed by the release schedule in Magic in 2022, and the thing that when I look back on it, I'm going to really remember, I hope changes. As a community and as a consumer, we need a certain amount of time to get excited about, open, ingest, talk about, and then play a set. You have to have it. If you don't have that, if that cycle doesn't exist for you, the set will not feel exciting and your memory of the set will change. Which is why, looking back at our old favorite sets, the ones that really stand out, the Rise of the Eldrazi's, the Innistrads, the really special sets, we had the full cycle. We had the 10 weeks, 12 weeks, to really do it, to lead up to it, to open it, to draft it, to pre-release, to talk about it, trade the cards. You get to play the limited format for a good solid month, 6 weeks before you're even thinking about the next thing. It's you're sick of the format before the next previews even start. That is the thing that is missing the most from Magic's current cycle. And 2022, I think, takes that concept and just laughs at it. Because most of the sets this year, there's only a few that I even really registered as relevant to talk about. I most of them I remember one day where in our group text with the Masters of Modern guys, we'd be like, oh, this card's cool. Or you and I would do a set review or something, and we would get excited for a day about a card. And then I'd blink and we'd be previewing the next set. Often I wouldn't have even opened a card yet. So I think that a lot of Magic and a lot of Magic's history and the cycle that has made it so successful is kind of invalidated by that. It's the one thing, I don't know how many sets you have to cut out, but I do think that the current release cycle eliminates that phenomenon. If you don't get to have that thing where as a collective group mind, a community, we are living the excitement of this one thing all together for a month or 2 months. We get it for a week. And that's not long enough. That is the biggest shortcoming that I hope changes in 2023.
Absolutely.
So my final thought.
We're ending on that thought. That's the thought. Everyone, make sure to check out our Patreon. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure to check us out on TikTok, the MMcast TikTok. Make sure to follow me and Ben at Kess and everything, including TikTok. And make sure to check out our TCG player link below. If you're going to buy some cards, if you're going to buy any of the cards that we're talking about, or packs or sets, or you're going to buy new cards from New Phyrexia, buy all of them from TCG player below. Click that link. And thank you to our editors. Thank you to our to Renee. Thank you to you, Ben. Thank you to everyone of you listening.
Thank you to you too, sir.
Perfect. Right. And we'll talk to all of you in the new year. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. Kwanzaa.
Christmas
all of it.
time is here. Cheers. Hope I good luck in Whamageddon, everybody. And to all a good night.
At Christmas, give you my heart.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.